Okay, so we're going to look at the basics of perspective and cube, what we did the other day in class, and we're just going to have a look at how the horizon line in the centre of the page affects where we're looking at the drawing. So what I mean by horizon line is that point in space where your eye meets the distance. So if we were to draw a horizon line here, like this would be a horizon line, and it's kind of where, if you're looking as a person, like this, you're stood here looking out, it's kind of that point where your eye is looking at as far as the eye can see. It's where buildings come down to, like this, yeah, and it's where rivers come from, yeah, like this. So this would be the horizon line here, right? So the horizon line is really important because it's as far as the eye can see, and what the eye does is it bends everything to this point in space. And when we're drawing, we have to consider it to make sure that what we're creating looks realistic and feasible. Okay? So when we're actually sketching something, give him a hat. When we're actually sketching something, we have to think about the horizon line. Now, if I was drawing something above the horizon line up here, it looks like we're looking up at something like a building. If I was drawing something below the horizon line, like down here, it actually starts to look as though I'm looking at something down below, like a box or something on the table. So whether you're below or above the horizon line depends on where we're actually looking on the page. So if I was to come over here, for this instance, what we'll do, we'll put the horizon line in the centre of the page, about here, and we'll draw this in with a ruler just for now, like this, like that. Now, if I was to draw something around here, what we need to do is think about the vanishing points. Now, vanishing points are where the lines disappear to. So there's always one on the left, so always think about a left vanishing point. We'll call that vanishing point 1, and we have vanishing point 2, which is on the right hand side over here. And all the lines that you'll draw on a page will converge at these 2 points. So if I was to draw a box here, like this, if I draw the start of the box, you can use your ruler if you want to help you find the lines. Any line that goes to the left of the box goes to the left vanishing point, and any line that goes to the right, like over here, goes to the right vanishing point, right? So right lines, like this, go to the right, and left lines, like this, go to the left. Then all you need to do is drop your vertical lines in, and then we have another line we need to find now. So this point will go, this is a left line, right? So this left line will go off to the vanishing point over here, and this right line here will go off to the vanishing point over there. So what we have now, if we sort of make this more solid, is a cube which is in fairly good perspective. Now, once we've done that, what we need to do is think about the third vanishing point, is the third one. If you're below this horizon line, the third point is way off down here somewhere. So we just taper these in. In theory, if I was to draw it, it's way off the page, it's somewhere right down the bottom of the table, like this. These lines are all going to come together at a point much further down, but we just indicate that a bit with our sketches. It just gives it that little bit more realism. If this cube is above the line, that third vanishing point is up, so all the lines come in. And you'll see that in a second. So I'm just going to scratch those lines in there a bit better, and maybe add a little bit of tone on one side just to make it look a bit more solid. So that's now a cube in 3D space in perspective. If I was to draw another box here, I draw the line like I did this one first. Any line that goes to the left goes to the left vanishing point, and any line that goes to the right, you might want to use your ruler in this instance, goes to the right vanishing point, like this. Drop another line in, drop another line in. Now, we don't really taper this in or out because it's actually on the horizon line, so we're just going to leave that as it is. But because we're actually drawing it on the horizon line, what that looks like to us is it has that same sort of look as what a building might look like if we were looking straight at it. Okay, so it makes something look bigger as an object because it's on the horizon line. If you were to look out your window and look at the building directly in front of you, you can't see the roof of it, you can't see the bottom of it, but you can see the main side of it. And that's because it's actually on your horizon line. If you were standing on a tall tower, the building might look like this. And that's because your eye line is higher than the object, which makes the object look smaller. if your eye line is below the object, so if you're on the ground now looking up, the object is above you, then we would say drop another line in here, like this. Any lines that are left, go to the left. Any lines which are right, like this one, go to the right. And then we need to have these lines coming down. Now we talked about the third vanishing point down here, number 3 vanishing point. Now because it's above the horizon line, it's further up. So now we're going to just taper these lines in a little bit like this. And what we have is something that looks similar to, say, a skyscraper. Okay, so these lines are tapered in, these perspective lines. This left one is coming down here. This right one is going over here. And these vertical lines are all coming up to a point somewhere way up there. Right, way up in number 3, vanishing point is somewhere up there. Okay, so we taper it. But that gives us this look that we recognise of a building looking up. So really, depending on where you draw your sketch, in terms of where you put your vanishing points and perspective line, horizon line, depends on how the object looks on the page. And that's very important, because if we are choosing to draw, say, an object on a table, you would sort of draw your horizon line here and draw your table objects here. If you're drawing a space or a building, you'd want to be considering drawing your objects on the horizon line or above it, but using these vanishing points to taper in your lines. Now, if I was to give you an example of doing that a little bit larger, what we might do is, let's say we were drawing a bridge, or something like a bridge. So let's say the bridge is going to come from the vanishing point over here, and let's say I want it to kind of look like this. So I'll put a line in there to start with, and then I'll put a vertical line up, and then we'll put another line in here. I'm just going to work out generally what the bridge is going to look like in terms of the height. Now, depending on where the person who's looking at this is standing depends on how high up I draw this line. If I draw this line high up here, it looks like I'm low down in the bridge, right? So because if this was the side of the bridge and you could see the post, you'd be looking up at it a little bit, which means I've drawn it very close. If I was to draw the top of the bridge here, like the handrail, that would indicate, because of the line, I'm looking down at it. So that's the kind of view that I want to get. So I'm going to kind of draw a couple of lines in here. And all I'm doing now is working out like the basics of in perspective of what I want this bridge to look like. I could do this freehand if I wish, but that can be a little bit tricky, especially when you're practicing. So using a ruler can be good. And I've created now a space which is 3-dimensional. I might say the end of the bridge is down here somewhere, like that. So it's way off. Now, if I was to say make this a cube, like a panel, let's say I made a panel here. There's a fairly relative looking box, and I wanted to copy that across to this side. I'll just use the ruler and draw a line across and draw that line up, and that's copied that image over fairly accurately onto the left hand line. Now if I wanted to then put this cube here and here and here and here and here and get smaller and smaller and smaller, you've got something called foreshortening. And foreshortening is where perspective and distance come together. And let's say if I was to get further and further away from this bridge, these parts would get smaller, which means someone standing at this end of the bridge would look very small, and someone standing at this end of the bridge would look very big. And to do that, you have to use little tricks in perspective. So at the minute we have a fairly good cube. If I was to draw a line straight across this, like that, to find the centre, and then use this ruler here, like that, to draw the centre line all the way down, I can find the centre point here. And then with that, I can draw a line that just goes straight from this left corner all the way through that point and up. If I draw that line in by ruler, where this line meets this line, I draw a line down, like that, and then just repeat that process. So we've got a point here and a point here, draw that up, and then I draw a line down. And if you can look, you can see what's happening is this small technique is actually starting to shrink these lines in relation to the perspective that I'm applying, like this, you see, straight down here, like this. And it's actually making them proportionally smaller each time, depending on how I've chosen that perspective to be. So in theory, in reality, I can just start to build that in now with my hand, like this. It's actually looking at this like something that's disappearing into the distance. Now I can copy that principle across here. I can find the centre here. This will be a centre line. Probably use the ruler for this one, like that. And then I can score that across here to find this line. Score that across here to find this line. So if I was drawing the bridge as a transparent bridge, this would be the way to do it. Now these all should line up. This one will line up with this one. This one would line up with this one. This one here would line up with this one, and so on. Yeah, and now that's becoming cubes all the way down, or steps of a bridge, for example. Now, if I wanted to find the centre of this whole thing, I would take the top of that and the bottom of that, and I would work out roughly where the centre of this would be, and you can cross a line over like that to do so. And it's somewhere about here because it's been foreshortened. So these two lines are crossed here, so I might find the centre of this bridge and do a spike here. This could be the centre. And I can start to see on the page now where this is going. I can kind of I've got an idea what this is going to look like. It starts to become a sketch. So what we'll do is, we've been working at everything below the horizon line here. Now what we'll do is start working on everything above the horizon line. So if this is going to be a tower, and this is where what we talked about last week is really important. You can do very, very, very sketchy, scrappy lines and build on them. So for example, on this one, I might put some posts in here. Right, start building some posts. Like this. We'll put a sphere there. Work out where that goes down. Put some detail in here. Like that. And we might do the same for this one. Now this is going to get slightly smaller because it's going away, so we'll kind of work out where that's going to go. Now these two are different sizes, but that's because they're in perspective. So I've just found the top of this and drawn a line to the left, and that's given me the parameters of where that needs to go. This would be the same. This would come to about here. But we're not looking for that much accuracy really. If you're just sketching, you can make a lot of this up as you do it. It doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so let's just say we've got a bridge here. Now, because I can use these lines, I can actually start to play around with this a little bit myself now, and actually use the line of my hand to kind of work out where bits need to be, like this. Now ideally what you should probably do is turn the page when you're working. It makes life a lot easier than actually sort of trying to do it by moving yourself around the page, but that's more difficult to do when I'm sketching. Let's have a look. That would come to here, like that. Something like this, like this. And so you're just building this up. I'm just trying to build a very, very loose idea of what this sketch is going to be. I might put some more detail in here now for panels. So maybe some glass panels of some sort might go in here. And we'll bring those down, make that a little bit stronger. So I want to keep those, that looks nice. Now I'm only going to focus on doing detail in the front of the drawing, because as you move further back in the sketch, you can actually get away with not doing as much detail. Because what you really want is just something nice and convincing in the foreground here, and then maybe something a little bit looser as you get further back. Like that. So just keeping it quite rough still. I'm just going to keep on working on these posts. Concentrate on the things which are very close. Like that. Maybe put a little bit of detail in there. make that a little bit more solid. And as we move further back here, we can cheat a little bit. We don't need to put that much detail into these bits here. But we can just indicate that there's stuff going on down there. It doesn't matter too much. A little bit of tone, there like this. Like that, make it look more solid. Now to draw straight lines like I'm doing here, I'm holding the pen further back. Normally when I do detail, I'm about here. If I do straight lines like this, I hold the pen further down. If you look, it's easier. It's easier to do straighter lines if you hold the pen further away. If I hold the pen here, try to do a straighter line, I'm going to do lots of messy bits. So I try to hold the pen a little bit further back when I'm doing something which is a little bit longer, like that. I just find that a little bit easier. So I'll just put a little bit in there. Now the thing is, I think the problem I've got at the minute is I'm trying too hard to make this look nice. So if I just back off a little bit and just get a little bit more scrappy with the sketch and care a bit less, I'll probably find that the drawing starts to speed up a little bit, which is actually what you want. So if I just put a little bit of shadow and some detail in some of these because it's close. That. This one. Alright, so I'm going to try and define this edge a little bit as well. We'll put this here. Like that. Maybe this could be some kind of concrete down here. Now, in terms of actually giving it a little bit of scale, what you can start doing then is using the horizon line like we talked about before. So, for example, with the horizon line, what we would have done is thought about what can be above it. So if we start to build in some buildings, for example, because this is above the horizon line, you can do a line or two here and use the left vanishing point and bring lines down this way. Like this, and start to build some buildings in. And then you can use the right vanishing point as well to build something in here, like this. Like that. I can do some bigger buildings there. Now if you can see what I mean, because you're actually drawing something which is above the horizon line, it actually looks like it's taller because it looks like you're looking up at it. So we can just keep in adding detail like this, using that same principle. So we're using left vanishing point, right vanishing point, and we're using the third vanishing point, which is kind of tapered upwards. So we're using that a little bit here to kind of give it the height, like this, and we'll continue that down here a little bit. As things start to move into the distance, they become a little bit more vague. You don't need so much detail. Okay, maybe like this. Like that. Let's have a think. Now, if you wanted to put in more detail, use these vanishing points again, and I might do something like this where I build maybe the edge of the bridge, or the bridge is crossing here, using the left vanishing point. maybe indicate there's some change in surface there using these lines. Like that. I'm not quite sure what it is, more like man-made bridge of some sort. This line, maybe use a ruler here a little bit just to find that. Like this. Like that. Just to kind of give it some shape. Now, what you could then do is you could then start to put people into the sketch as well. So people are really good for scale. So you'd want someone's head to be above this, so you'd want someone's head to be about here. Which means then you're going to have the torso, it's going to be about here. Shoulder left, shoulder right, waist. And then you can play around a little bit with the legs to try and find where the knee joints would be. And the feet would be about here. Arms, a couple of eyes, an ear, so on. Once you start to put people into the sketch, it gives it a nice sense of realism. Right, give them a hat or something. It kind of brings us the whole sort of drawing together. And if you draw people on the bridge coming down, you know, they're more likely to be kind of something like this. That sort of size. Maybe have someone in the distance down here. And it's always nice to sort of put a little bit of context in with your drawings like this. It just gives it a sense of realism and scale, perspective. Yeah, kind of makes it look a bit more structured. You could use your ruler to kind of fill up some of these lines to get them neater if you wanted to, or you could just do it by hand. But what you want to do then is start to build something a bit more solid in like this. So the outside line would want to be fairly solid and strong, because that would define these shapes against everything else. Anything that's an outside line wants to be fairly heavy, like this. Anything that's an inside line wants to be quite light. So all these inside lines are much lighter, but anything with air behind it, you make like a heavier line, like this. Okay, and then you can divide it using your perspective lines that you've kind of drawn. This will give it another bit more of an edge of realism. Just put more in like this. A couple of lines in there. For example. Just so it starts to look like something you recognise. Like that. And maybe put some trees or something in the distance. So it can make it look a bit more real. Drawings suddenly just start to come together, and a lot of that is just down to when you're putting the detail in, really. It's never really good to try and do a drawing perfect first time, because basically it doesn't work like that. A lot of good drawing comes from, I'm not saying that this is a good drawing, but a lot of good drawing will come from building up bits over time. So like with this post here, I've left this post till later, and now I'm just sort of starting to add a little bit of something to it to kind of make it look a little bit more realistic. Like this. I could add a bit of tone to that. That's going to be shaded under there. shaded here. Like that. And if you wanted to have cables on the bridge, you maybe have a point here where there's some cables that are attached, like this. Now if you can look, I'm keeping the pen at quite a distance to my hand, and I'm just using that as a straight line, locking my wrist and letting it draw that out. These ones are quite important because these are the ones that are in the foreground, like these here. So on. I could just keep adding a few of these in. Without putting too much effort into it, like that. Now, just move a little bit there. Maybe a bit of a shadow here. This is going to go across, so that wants to be a solid line all the way across there. That's the bottom of the bridge. Maybe have some kind of trees here as well. Like that. Put a few in the distance here on this side, just to give it a little bit of texture. And the more you keep working on this, the more you can build in more and more detail. So you can start to kind of build windows in and so on, or smoke, things like this. Right, and so if you're looking about this principle here, if we draw something at the bottom here, if we were to draw something low down like this, right, you could almost say this could be like a bin, because we're drawing it way below the horizon line, so it gives us that look that we're actually looking at something which is low down, you see, because it's drawn way down here at the bottom of the horizon line. Same principle as we've done before. Very, very light sketches and just build it up, quick and rough. Like this. Yeah. And you might have a few people, if you look at the horizon, you might have a few people over here, just sort of walking away. Just add a little bit of context.